So the last time Richard Terrile was with us, he was talking about computation speed. This time he's here to talk about something entirely different, and I think a reasonable title for his talk, if I have it correctly, would be, How do you know? How do you know? How do you know, for example, that we're not all figments of God's imagination? Crudely put, I think that's what Christian Science maintains. And he might say, how do you know? How do you know that we're not living in an elaborate simulation put together by a junior god or by a really sharp Korean kid who's working sometime in the future? How do you know? Richard, come and tell us.
Thank you. Hi, I want to take you on a little journey, and let's see, let me, and the title of my talk is really, Who Runs the Universe, and Are We in a Simulation? And I want to start the journey with a little anecdote, and the anecdote is, what I'm going to show is a picture of something called an equatorium, and this is a scientific instrument which is designed to accurately predict the positions of the planets in the night sky. And the amazing thing about this thing, it was built in the 1500s, and it was built under the assumption that the Earth is the center of the universe. So it kind of shows you that you can be wrong for a very, very long period of time and still get the right answer. The way it gets the right answer is it has these little circles within circles where the planets execute these things called epicycles. And it basically counteracts the fact that you've actually had the wrong set of coordinates for this assumption. But it reminds me that I want to really question our foundational assumptions that we make today. Are there assumptions that we make that are so fundamental that we don't even think of them as assumptions? And we're going to be looking at things like that in this journey. And in some cases, we're going to be looking in the opposite direction of where conventional wisdom is, because we maybe get a different perspective on things. So the journey begins with me as a young child. My parents were from Argentina. I grew up in Flushing, New York, and I grew up as a Catholic. And every day after school, or actually we left school early at 2 o'clock and walked from PS 120 all the way to St. Anne's, and got an hour-and-a-half lecture from the nuns, and we learned out of something called the Baltimore Catechism. Maybe some of you are familiar with this. It's an astonishing book. It's got a series of questions and answers. And I was always intrigued by the first couple of questions and answers in this thing that I've reproduced here. And, you know, who made the world and who is God? And, you know, in this thing is kind of a clear definition of God. You know, God is the creator of heaven and earth and of all things. And then in the second version of the thing, the revised version, they added a little bit more to that. He's a supreme being, infinitely perfect, and who made all things and keeps them in existence. And I found this thing fascinating. I mean, here's a guy with job security, keeping things in existence. I mean, what a great job title that is. But it got me thinking, and it really wasn't enough to satisfy my curiosity, and I became a scientist. And I've gotten to work on the most amazing, beautiful exploration phenomena imaginable. But what is science? Now that I look back at my career in science, you know, what have we really done and what have we really learned? Well, you know, science supposedly is the understanding of the nature of the physical world, looking outside the sphere of reality and seeing the clockwork of how the universe works. The hard reality of science is that science is the discovery of the mathematical framework which explains our observations. That's our understanding of science. The astonishing thing about our universe is that our universe is mathematical. It is based on mathematics, and it runs on mathematics. It didn't have to be this way, but it is. And it is perhaps the most profoundly astonishing attribute of our universe. And don't take my word for it. Einstein said that the most incomprehensible thing about the world is that it's comprehensible. Wigner said, and he wrote this treatise on the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics in the natural world, and he called this thing a miracle. He called this mathematical tie a gift that we neither understand nor deserve. Okay, it's absolutely fundamental. Now, what does this do? What does this do for us? Well, it has very, very interesting effects on the universe. For one thing, it allows me to write down everything I know about the universe on a few sheets of paper I can carry around in my pocket, including the physical constants. With this, I can simulate the universe in a computer much smaller than the universe. And this is an astonishing attribute, absolutely astonishing. The other thing about the universe that we've learned is that it's pixelated. There are quantum phenomena that cannot get smaller than the Planck length, which defines the smallest thing possible in the universe. Beyond that, things don't make sense. And it's not only length, it's mass, it's energy, it's time, it's volume. Everything about the universe has a finite number of elements, and therefore the universe has a finite number of states it can be in, and therefore it's computable. Okay, that's pretty amazing. And in this journey of science that I took, I lost my religion. And that's pretty common in science. Most scientists aren't really faith-based. There is no reason, there's no possibility of really being faith-based if you have this framework. Okay, so there's no magic in my world. There's no faith-based in my world. There's no miracles in my world. But as you'll see in a moment, there are things that are maybe even cooler than that. I've lost my religion to science. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about what it takes, what do you have to believe to be an atheist, okay? And here's where we're going to look at things in a slightly different way. Well, one thing you need to believe is you need to believe to have an origin theory, an origin story that is independent of a creator, okay? And we've got a pretty good one in science. We've got the Big Bang. The universe maybe spontaneously formed as a quantum phenomenon, although it's got a few epicycles in it as well. It's incredibly unlikely this would happen. The larger the universe, the larger the thing you're going to spontaneously create, and the longer it stays in existence, the lower the probability of this thing happening. And before you would form a universe 13.8 billion years old, you'd form a lot of other universes a lot younger than that, a lot smaller than that. We don't need 200 billion galaxies in our universe. We need one, or maybe we just need a star, maybe we just need a planet, maybe we just need a brain. And there are things called Boltzmann brains, which would pop up much more frequently than exploding an entire universe our size. So there's problems with our theory, but we tend to wash over these things. We've got a pretty good origin idea. We're going to stick with it. What's the other thing you need to learn, need to believe to be an atheist? Well, you need to believe that there's no God, okay? And I can't prove a negative, okay? But let's again look at it from a different point of view. Can I prove the positive? Can I prove that God can exist in our world, obeying all the laws of science, obeying the speed of light, no time travel, no miracles, no magic, just engineering, sound engineering? Can I build God? The astonishing answer is, because of this mathematical nature of the universe, because I can simulate it, there is a scenario when I can meet all the requirements written down in the Baltimore Catechism as a simulation. If I'm a programmer and I put together a simulation, I basically have the power of physics, I have the power of creating the world, keeping things in existence. If I can create a simulation that has artificial, self-aware autonomy in it, then I basically created a universe, and I would have that power that we have written down in religion as God. So here's a way where technology itself can replicate this godlike ability, with the virtual reality goggles and creating these universes. So what I want to do is I want to explore three different things right now in very, very rapid succession, and that is advanced computation, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality, which would come together to give you this kind of engineering to become or to have that kind of power over mind and matter. Okay, so here's this chart. I gave a talk here 10 years ago, and 10 years ago we talked about computer speed. And here's a chart about computer speed, and it shows from 1960 all the way to the current year how fast computers are. And in 1960, our computers, the fastest computer in the world, is something we carry in our pockets right now. And I'm not talking about your cell phones, I'm talking about your key fobs. All right? We've gained a factor of over 30 billion times the kind of capability we carry around in our supercomputers. So much so that the computational speed of the human brain, which is estimated to be around 10 to the 15th operations per second, 1 billion operations per second, has been far exceeded by some of our supercomputers. They're 30 times faster than this now. Even our PlayStations are only 13 years behind supercomputers. So by the year 2020, PlayStations, it may be PlayStations come out every 6 to 8 years. So the next couple generations of PlayStations will have that capability of being able to compute at the same rate that the human brain does. By 2045, 30 years from now, PlayStation 7 or 8 should have the capability of being able to compute about 10,000 human brains simultaneously. And by computing, I'm just talking about raw computer speed, not necessarily consciousness, okay? Because consciousness is another issue, and that's the one I'm going to talk about next, okay? So what really forms consciousness? Is it some spiritual thing, some magical spirit that we have in our heads? Well, as the skeptical scientist, you know, the spoiler alert, I'm not going to have a faith-based revelation at the end of this thing. Everything I'm going to say is going to be based on science. So we really can't go to this direction. We have to go back to the blood and meat that is our brains. And what makes us conscious? What makes us self-aware? Well, we believe it's the intricacies of the wiring inside the brain. And there are two approaches to this right now. One approach is to reverse engineer the brain. This is what Ray Kurzweil talks about, things like that. The approach that my lab takes and the people I work with is to evolve the brain, to do random variation and selection and see if we can replicate the kinds of neural circuitry that gives you self-awareness. Either way, I think we're probably 10 to 15 to 30 years away from achieving this kinds of artificial consciousness. Finally, the mathematics of virtual reality. If two things are indistinguishable mathematically, then they're the same, okay? And we have to ask the question, if I can replicate a virtual environment which is indistinguishable from a real environment, is it the same? Do I lose the real environment some way? So I'm going to take you on a little journey, very, very rapidly, kind of a mind journey. We start off with the brain. Brain surrounded by the body, and within the brain, body and mind are very, very closely interlocked. We have a version of the body within our brains. In fact, if we chop off an arm, we can still feel pain in a phantom limb. But the body, nevertheless, has circuitry which is involved in sensing the outside universe. And we all believe there's an outside universe, even though the model of that universe is in our heads. We experience the universe inside our brains, and we believe that there is this outside universe. Now, if I were to enclose the entire body in some kind of membrane, a window or so, and shut the outside world off and replace it with a simulator, which absolutely photoreal, sensory real, simulates all of those sensory inputs to the body, then we have to ask the question, is the real world identical to the simulated world? And if that's the case, then the simulated world is identical to this, the real world not existing, okay? And if I can now simulate things photoreal, then I can simulate a whole bunch of different scenarios, and I can change who we are, where we are, what we're looking. I can change things to our body types. We can even get rid of the body itself, and ultimately, if we would upload our consciousness into computers, we don't even need the brain. We just need our minds somehow interacting with this machine which can replicate forms of reality. Now, it's couched in our current reality. It has to plug in somewhere. It has to obey the laws of physics that we're stuck with, but nevertheless, whatever is in this machine, in this computer simulating reality, can do anything it wants. It can be in any universe. It could start time. It could stop time. Probabilities are things you could play with. Whoops. Okay. So to summarize, the universe is unreasonably follows mathematics. Okay. The universe is computable. It has a finite number of states, and we can compute it in a machine much smaller than the universe. The simulation of reality is much, much easier than it really should be. That's why we're blown away in movies that we see special effects that can just show just about anything we can think of can be shown. And that's because these equations are so good at predicting what reality is. The universe really does behave like a video game. When we see a portion of a video game, we're looking at 1/1,000,000th the size of the video game at any one time, and we experience the universe the same way. And in fact, quantum mechanics behaves that way. Quantum mechanics only really shows you a real definite state when it's being observed. And this is one of the epicycles about that theory. It's a problem. It's called the measurement problem. And it shows that there is a conscious nature required to make an experiment real. And we don't like that in physics. So we bend over backwards, changing our theories and exploring the many worlds theory or waves that extend into the future and past that all particles have, or the collapse of the wave function. We do lots and lots of things to avoid this idea that consciousness has anything to do with reality. But it may. This may be a bad assumption. So the question now is, God is possible, God is inevitable, God is an engineering feat. Did God already happen? Has it already happened? Are we already in a simulation? And that's the question we pose. And here's where it starts to get uncomfortable, because now you're thinking, well, gosh, what if there's some kid with a PlayStation 8, and a PlayStation 8, 30 years from now, again, could basically all the PlayStation could contain more digital people than there exist today. There could be 1 trillion digital people in 30 years just in PlayStations. So is it a situation where I have, some kid is simulating ideacity, and I'm sitting in the audience listening to some guy tell me we're in a simulation, jerking me around that way? Certainly it's a possibility. I have perhaps a little better vision of this. Again, if we look down, we do two things now. We look down and see where we came from. Could we have made a wrong assumption about our origin story? Our origin story is predicated on the assumption that it happened to us. But what if we're not the first? Just like we're not the center of the universe. Just like humans are no different than animals. I mean, these are assumptions that have fallen by the wayside and revolutionized science. And perhaps one of the ones here are one of the ones we're stuck with. Is preventing us from looking at the fact that we may be a simulation. So we need to both look down, understand the physics, understand the relevance of the physical data to simulation. We also need to look up. We need to see and engineer that next level of existence. We have been given a universe which is profoundly beautiful and holds incalculable potential. And we stand at the cusp of being able to gain almost godlike power over mind and matter. Okay? There can be no more monumental time for consciousness than this time. It's only 20, 30 years away from being able to do that. That's 1/300,000,000th the time of the entire age of the universe. What's the probability that we've just now won this lotto of irony, that we're that close and not over the edge? I believe that the signatures of the universe are telling us fundamentally that the universe is probably engineered for consciousness. And we are both the children of that universe and also the architects of its future. And that is way cooler than atheism. I hope I've given you something to think about. Thank you, my friends.
I have a theory of the universe as well.
I'd love to hear it.
Anybody want to hear it? Yep. Yeah. Well, imagine that you're it, that you're God, that you're the thing itself. And if you are the thing itself, you know everything there is to know, and you know how things are going to turn out. And it must be monumentally boring. It must be epically boring. So what would a deity facing eternal boredom do in order to alleviate that boredom? And so I've developed a theory of the creation of the universe for entertainment. I think God has done this in order to keep herself occupied. And if, as a God, you know how everything turns out, you know that's going to spoil your entertainment, so you have to configure things so that you don't know how things turn out. You actually set them in motion with the rules set in so that while there is predictability, there's not certainty. That's my theory. The origin of the universe for entertainment.
I think you're on the right track.
Is that close?
Absolutely close.
Is that close to, like, did we have that piece of Tron? Do you remember Tron?
Tron, yeah.
Yeah, I asked for that. And what happens here? Oh, maybe we could hear the sound.
There he goes.
Yeah. So he's being sucked into the device.
You know, in what you said that the boredom, we always ask ourselves, well, why would God create this universe with suffering and all this other things? And maybe that's the reason, because it's a lot more interesting than having the power of God and being able to do anything you want.
It's more entertaining to have us suffer. That's an encouraging note on which to thank you for an exceptional address. Thank you so much, Richard. Here, let's take a picture.